Financial advisors got all these pieces. Randomly, they're not valuable. But if a client buys into the fact that, hey, I will put every piece of the puzzle together, I'll engage your other service providers, you'll have the complete picture, your fee worthiness, the degree that you're appreciated, and your advocacy soars.
A lot of advisors are thinking about the future. And I'm just wondering about biggest trends that you see shaping the future of financial advice.
Many advisors are exceptional messengers, but their messaging has them swimming in an ocean of sameness.
Let's dive into AI and the practical use, or how should we be thinking about it moving forward?
I don't think I've seen anything that can have as much impact on a business than AI. One of the reasons why you have such great credibility as an advisor to an advisor is because you are an advisor. So your instincts and discernment are bang on. The moment you do address this, literally 6 to 9 months, you can find another level of growth, efficiency, and productivity just by going through that simple protocol.
There's a lot happening in the world of digital marketing. And why do you believe referrals are still the best way to grow a financial advisory practice? Advisors, that is a masterclass on how to get referrals.
So there's a very specific way to engineer how you can elevate from the pack and be the most attractive suitor.
This will be the most viewed part of the conversation.
So that's a very enlightened question, and I'm not surprised because I'll just acknowledge this.
So Duncan, you've been in the industry for decades. I don't even know how long, but I know it's decades.
Well, it's 30 years officially right now.
Okay, today.
Well,
But and you've helped thousands of advisors, whether that's one-to-one, whether it's teaching online, or whether it's speaking to all these conferences that you go to. But I'd like to dive in and start thinking about, it's the end of the year, so I'm thinking about 2025. A lot of advisors are and thinking about the future. And I'm just wondering about biggest trends that you see shaping the future of financial advice.
Right. So directionally, like, where is this all going, and what are some of the patterns that we see developing with our clients that we coach and consult with? In no specific order, of course, there's the shift from B2C growth, so organic business to client growth. Once an advisory team has cracked that code and has achieved consistency in terms of the quality and quantity of client acquisition that they're seeing organically, that can then shift as a proof of concept to the B2B, the business to business. And this is, of course, are the advisory teams that are scaling up.
Okay.
They're acquiring businesses, they're attracting other advisors to adopt and draft in behind their efficiencies and deploy their way, right, their process. And effectively what they are is they're franchise ready. And that is a spectacular growth model for the right team. And it's not for everybody, obviously, because, on the other side, Dave, we have advisors who are, in order to grow up market, they're growing down. They're growing down their client count so they can narrowcast and have professional scarcity in terms of attracting the right client. So their goal isn't to see how big they can get, it's how small they can stay as they grow up market. So that's another trend.
Would you say that's two separate routes, going narrowcast, super specific, keeping it, I'll just say small, and then the other route is you said B2B and franchise ready. You're just talking about systematizing everything that you're doing so that others can either hop on board with you and it's easy to replicate, or you're saying buy other practices. Can you help me understand that more?
So B2B is when the advisor becomes the addressable audience, not the investment client. They can actually monetize on their intellectual property, their process, their client experience there. And we can get into the weeds on that, but and it's basically a turbo on their growth model because, and again, I'll just tie this into the whole, we all know full well the demographic forces at play here. This is an aging industry, and there are a lot of advisors out there who do not have a continuity and succession plan. They don't have a protege in place. So they're looking not only to monetize on their life's work, but to make sure their clients are in good hands and their team is in good hands. So they might get into a bit of a short-term sell and stay scenario. But what's interesting about that, and I talked about this yesterday with a team, is that there's arguably 10 buyers for every seller That's an opportunity for a professional contrast. So there's a very specific way to engineer how you can elevate from the pack and be the most attractive suitor. Most people just simply have the money. They don't really bring anything else to the table to the advisor and the team and the clients. But the advisor, the acquirer who's really got that fully panoramically built out, they're very attractive. So B2C to B2B, continuity and succession, growing down. There's some of the patterns that we see developing and accelerating. And then, of course, I know this is near and dear to you, is just the whole reality around AI and artificial intelligence. And we've gone so far down that rabbit hole because it is the proverbial game changer. I mean, that's where that phrase is thrown around loosely. I don't think I've seen anything that can have as much impact on a business than AI.
Let's dive into that AI and the practical use, or how should we be thinking about it moving forward?
Well, okay, so let's begin with the end in mind, right? Every advisory firm, their beacon, their true north is, how do I keep achieving professional contrast to distinguish myself, to differentiate myself? How can I have professional conversion, which is the ongoing conversion of customer to client to advocate, referral generating advocate? And then professional scarcity, attracting the right people. Those are three in non-optional, like they're essential drivers to a business. Mm-hmm. So to get into that, the first thing I say to an advisor regarding AI is competitor-proof, fee-worthiness with your clients. Use AI to fully build out your intellectual property around your standard operating procedure. And without getting too bogged down on this, Dave, there's 4 core quadrants to the intellectual property of a financial advisor's way. And by way, I mean what it means to be their client. There's their onboarding process, their fit process, of course, their ongoing service model, and the way they acknowledge critical life events, milestones, achievements, and setbacks in a client's life. Those 4 quadrants can be brought to life very, very quickly using AI. And I'll give you a quick example.
Yeah. Or feel free to use me as the example, but yeah, go ahead.
Well, okay. So let me get organized here. So first of all, I was talking to an advisor not long ago, and he wants to create order and structure. I said to him, it can't be the Dave show. Let's depersonalize your business so your clients don't just trust you. They also trust and appreciate the practice and the process. So where do we start? I said, okay, go into ChatGPT and just simply say, I am a financial professional. I have a team of 5. I'm striving to elevate the client experience to create more consistency. Create an org chart of roles and responsibilities so I have unwavering accountability with my team. 3 seconds. Now, it wasn't perfect, but as a framework, he was in the red zone in 3 seconds. And I said, okay, now we have something that we can actually build out as your org chart. Now, we don't stop there. The next step is ask ChatGPT to provide you. Just simply say, and again, you know this, ChatGPT learns from you and your patterns as you're kind of coaching it in real time. So the next step was, I'm a financial professional. I lead a team of 5. I work primarily with successful business owners, professionals, and executives. Build me a framework for a procedures manual of standard operating procedures. 3 seconds. Again, not perfect, but in the red zone. Then we just kept going. Next step. Okay, I'm a financial professional. Create for me a fit process so that when I meet a prospective client for the first time, I can achieve professional contrast. Right? We all know the expression, for me to get hired, someone's got to get fired. How do we amplify contrast with a prospective client? Literally, the sequence of steps for a fit process provided. Now, of course, you get to the red zone, you still need to get home. So that's where an accountability partner can come in to refine and optimize. But the AI progression, and we have an actual incremental progression for how to build out a financial professional's intellectual property, their process. This is incredibly valuable. So again, I can stop there. You can chime in, but that's where it starts.
So this sounds like something that you were doing, your team was doing one-to-one as the coach. Are you turning ChatGPT to scale this to advisors this way? Like, did you take what you have, put it in ChatGPT to be the coach?
Okay, so that's a very enlightened question, and I'm not surprised because I'll just acknowledge this. One of the reasons why you have such great credibility as an advisor to an advisor is because you are an advisor. So your instincts and discernment are bang on. So yes, we would still do one-to-many presentations and tell an advisor to do this, and they would all agree, and it would go to their heads to die because it's just easier not to do. Right? The law of diminishing intent, we all know the expression, after all is said and done, more is often said than done. So now what this does is takes a one-to-many presentation from a pep talk and a fireside chat and a data dump to specific action items that can put an advisor in the red zone. So yes, they get their team on board. They start to actually demystify what this all looks like and actually create something. And then what we can do is professionalize it, customize it, optimize it, standardize it, and lock it down as part of their IP. So long story short, you're right. It takes them further down the track and then helps us create some scale. So bang on.
Okay. Do you have an idea? To me, it seems like switching from B to C, that's obviously the majority of financial advisors is, how do I get really good at this? How do I provide the best service for my clients and just keep helping people make smart money decisions? That's everybody's goal, right? Any idea what percentage of advisors say, maybe I do have this figured out and it's time to go B2B, get the process, and do everything you're talking about? I think that's a small percentage of people. Any idea who wants to do that, or any examples of advisors who have done it? Again, you're living in this world helping advisors do that. I didn't know that would be a popular thing that advisors are thinking they need to do.
It's really emerged significantly in the last 5 years. In terms of a percentage, I don't know. I mean, a large percentage of the clients we work with want to do this. They aspire to this, but we sort of cater to a pretty high caliber team. In terms of the industry in general, I'm going to say it's probably less than 10% aspire to this, because ultimately it's not easy. It's work.
Mm-hmm.
But, one thing that we like to do is understand where a financial professional is on the spectrum between contentment and ambition. There are a lot of advisors that are living a great life. Their income is spectacular. They have this forced savings dynamic at play because their business is becoming the most valuable asset they possess. And they're like, my goal isn't to see how big I can get. It's how small I can stay and just make sure the business serves my life and not the other way around, and make sure I can still go do everything. So they're content with that. And maybe they want to become more content and grow down. I mean, we meet a lot of advisors with 300 clients that after 12 months, they've got 75. They respectfully allocate or automate or even disassociate from certain clients that are not a good fit, so they can go deeper with the clients whose needs are more complex. That group is content. But then you have the group who says, no, it's go time. We've cracked the code. We've got our process. We've got our playbook. Let's put the playbook in somebody else's hand. And instead of them winging it and leaving it to their own devices, they can just create some efficiencies by drafting it behind our process. I think that group is probably, I'm guessing, but I'm going to say it's less than 10%.
Okay. And then what about the advisors who are 60 and they're looking at, like you had said, succession? Are they looking at B2B as increase in value, kind of turn it more into enterprise value because they're doing this?
Well, as you know, I mean, the multiples are incredible. I mean, what used to be a 2 or 3x scenario is now 6, 8, 10x or more based on the scalability. And the valuations are not just EBITDA recurring and all the obvious. I mean, that's foundationally essential. But then you get into IP. What's the IP worth? And what's the trajectory, towards that proverbial hockey stick? And yeah, so those who are ambitious, especially, and I really love the advisors that say, I probably got 5 more years of this, and they're not thinking it in terms of dread and I have to do this. It's like, okay, I'm just being realistic. I can see myself doing this for another 5 years, but self-actualization. I want to go out on my terms and I want to see how far I can take this. And I want to bring on some proteges. This is all part of my legacy. So, yeah. And again, I just love the concept that every investment of effort you make working on the business culminates in your ability to scale, but it also culminates in the enterprise value. Every business is built to be sold. Let's make sure that you monetize fully and completely. So,
yeah. I don't know if you're okay with this, but what advice would you give? I'm in kind of a unique situation, or Streamline Financial is in a unique situation because just this year we got the email from YouTube. Here's the recap for 2024, and it wasn't always like this, but it was 7 million views, and years and years of watch time from people watching all retirement content, and we're pretty selective with who we bring on as clients. We did just hire 2 advisors, which is great. So we're growing, but we're doing it at a pretty slow pace on purpose. And I don't know if things come to mind, because you were talking about valuations and what we want to do. We definitely don't want to go the route of these PE firms doing these big, that sounds wonderful, but there's a lot of negatives when it comes to the employees and to the clients we've seen from others who do it that way. So we want to create a legacy business and have next generation come in and continue to run Streamline a different way. But I don't even know what I'm asking here, but any ideas or thoughts as you think about this kind of weird type business with all this inflow, but still keeping it small? Any ideas on what we should do here?
Well, first of all, I just want to acknowledge the fact that you've achieved what you've achieved because you're a good messenger with a solid message. And, I have immense respect for that. So you've earned that. It's spectacular. And, what's interesting about an advisor to advisors who also has clients is that every conversation you have like this, you probably in the back of your mind assume that you might have a client listen in. Mm-hmm. And if a client hears you talking to somebody like me or your other guest, as a client, I'm probably saying to myself, you know what, I'm with the right team. I belong to something meaningful. This team takes this seriously. So there's a ripple effect there that's quite impressive. But, it's so individual. I learned a long time ago, I had a mentor who said to me, he said, don't just focus on making a profit. Focus also on leaving a profit, which means everything you touch, everybody you interact with is just so much better off because they're involved with what you're doing. And that's never lost on me. There's a qualitative aspect to success, not just the quantitative. And so a big part of when we do a diagnostic and a gap analysis with a team, we want to understand what really motivates them. Like, why? Why is this important to you? The how we'll figure out, but cause and effect, activity, productivity, we'll figure that out. But what is your beacon? What is your why? And once that's clear, somebody can just be at peace with the incrementalism, things. When you're methodical, you don't swing for the fences, things do build gradually. And then suddenly, because of the inflection point, and you just let that sort of play out. So okay. I don't know. I'm not sure if I even answered your question, but I love the business.
Yeah. It's just interesting because we could grow to the moon, but there's something in at least Tim and I where it's like, that's not it right now. Now we're having, this was the best year ever. So in terms of the right clients and everything related to revenue and growth. So things are great, but it kind of feels bad when we have to turn away so many people. That might be the heart of this, where there are a lot of people coming to us and we're just we want to point them to the right spot, and we're working on that. So that might be
that's a huge indication of integrity. I mean, if somebody says, look, I have an ideal client profile, we don't try to be all things to all people, we're all things to some people. If you deviate from that, it undermines the whole positioning. So it's I understand what you're saying, but I always say to our clients, like if you bring somebody on who's not a good fit, you're arguably doing the people who are a good fit a disservice, because you might be diluting yourself a little bit. And there's other elements into that, but being a specialist, narrowcasting instead of broadcasting, you're building it on your terms, and there's a very enhanced level of credibility that comes with that.
Well, let's get back to something a little bit more practical here. Thanks for your insight on that. So you've got a perspective on using referrals as, I believe what you said was the primary acquisition method for those who want to grow. Now, there's a lot happening in the world of digital marketing and being out there online. Why do you believe referrals are still the best way to grow a financial advisory practice?
Well, I mean, it's the lowest friction and the highest level of predisposition is to meet with somebody for the first time who has been introduced to you by somebody who's already convinced. I mean, there's no shortage of strategies to go out and convince people and to attract people. Search engine optimization. I mean, the whole spectrum, the gamut of seminars and advertising. But the key mantra here is that it's more important to reach people who count than to count the number of people you're reaching. The people who count is every investment of effort you make with an existing client, competitor proofs, gets out in front of evolving needs, amplifies fee worthiness, and positions you for advocacy. Now, this is such a huge distinction. There's a big difference between a client and an advocate. A client empowers you. There's a practical component. There's a, personal fulfillment component. And in a referable moment, they will endorse you. If they're talking to a friend, they'll say nice things. Advocates are different. Advocates are the dream client. They're fiercely loyal. They're a joy to work with. Doesn't even feel like work. They don't endorse. They don't tell a friend to call you. They call you on behalf of the friend. You see, an advocate does not refer somebody to you because they're trying to help you grow your business. They feel they're doing their friend a disservice. They have so much conviction for your value, and there's so much awareness for the unmet need the friend has. They see the alignment, they make the introduction. That is engineered. It's engineered by helping people understand your value. And long story short, our approach is that referrals are attracted through stewardship, not salesmanship. Now, what that means is, yes, the advisors that we know who are building their business consistently, organically, 100% of their new clients are acquired through introductions. They only accept new clients that are introduced, but they never ask for referrals. They never ask for them. They don't pitch the idea, Dave, of a referral as a favor. They're asking of you. They don't sit there and say, in a meeting, they don't say, look, I'm trying to grow my business, and if you can think of anybody, I'd really appreciate you steering them my way. No, I just don't believe you should bring your needs to a client. You got to bring your value. So our approach is position the concept of an introduction as a service you're providing for the client.
Okay.
Not as a favor. Now, what does that look like? Well,
tell me how to do it. Tell me how to do it, Duncan.
So the framework is why, who, how. Demystify why you are a financial advisor and why you'll speak to a friend. When you remove that mystery, when you fuel it with your sense of purpose, you become more referable. I'll show you that in a second. Demystify who. Dave, many financial advisors are referable. They'll get 10 referrals in a year. 1 will be an ideal client. 9, not a good fit. Mm-hmm. So it's because the advisor left their clients to their own devices to figure out who to steer their way. You got to demystify who, and that amplifies professional scarcity. And then how. Tell somebody, demystify how to make an introduction. Okay, so positioning. It's a value-added service that people value. Why do they value it? Because of volatility, uncertainty, and just basically coming to the end of a relationship for whatever reason. My existing advisor never calls me. When they do call me, it's just because they've got an idea. So as a friend, okay, so here's what happens. Let's just say I'm a friend of one of your clients. I've come to my own conclusions. I'm done with my current advisor for whatever reason. First thing I might do is I might go online, Google search and say, okay, I live in Chicago. I own my own business. I want to retire and exit in the next 5 years. I'm looking for a new financial advisor. Google search. Okay, so there's some options. Now I'm like, oh my gosh, look at all these options. So then I go to a friend. And I say, hey, I'm done. I'm getting ready to wind it down. Do you know somebody? These referable moments happen, fueled by demography, uncertainty, volatility, noise, all of this. What does your client say? You have to coach your client how to respond to this referable moment. So what does that look like? In a strategy and tactical meeting with the client, you would say something like this. So we just had a strategy and tactical meeting. We got clear and in sync. We made adjustments, mid-course corrections, all of that. We followed the agenda. The meeting's winding down.
Okay, I'm the client. Thanks.
You're the client.
Every time I meet with you, I feel better. Thanks, Duncan. This was great.
Appreciate that. And again, likewise, always great to connect with you. And Dave, you can see on the agenda, I got one last item I want to remind you about. I've come to this realization that I've got this array of value-added services that I offer for my clients that not everybody is aware of. And there's one that I think is incredibly important, especially now with everything that's going on in the world. And that is, I make myself available to be a sounding board for friends and family members of my clients. Okay. And they do not need to become a client to take advantage of this service. If they're important to you, they're important to me. And I just wanted to let you know that, especially with everything that's going on. And I stop. I read the room. One of two things happens.
I'll say, okay, that's good to know.
If you say to me, good to know, I leave it there.
Okay.
I planted a seed. This is not me being opportunistic. This is not me being the hunter-gatherer. I'm trying to, no. I'm planting a seed and I'm playing the long game. I'm just planting a seed.
Now I say, sorry for interrupting, but I like this. I did a couple of weeks ago, a friend just told me that he wasn't happy with what he was doing with his advisor.
Yeah. And Dave, I'm hearing that a lot. Even on my street. I mean, a lot of my neighbors know I'm a financial advisor. I've probably been asked more questions in the last 6 months than in the previous 6 years about what's going on. So listen, this may never happen, but if it does happen, I take the agenda, I turn it upside down, and I write 3 words down. Why, who, how. Okay, so Dave, let me tell you why I do this, okay? You might not know this, but I became a financial advisor 17 years ago for a variety of different reasons. Probably the most important is to help people tune out the noise and make informed decisions so they can look to the future with anticipation instead of apprehension. And I have to tell you, still to this day, this is the most fulfilling thing I do. And I have to tell you, last week, I had a client introduce me to his sister, who I could tell. I said, of course, I'll meet with her. I'll be a sounding board. I could tell the moment I met her, carrying a heavy load of anxiety, uncertainty. And we just had a conversation. I just got her to focus on what mattered, what she could control. I could see her apprehension melt away. And it's moments like that, I say to myself, that's why I became a financial advisor right there. Now, Dave, as I said, they don't need to become a client. If they want to become a client, that's a separate conversation. No expectation it needs to happen. But as you know by now, I do not pretend to be all things to all people. I'm all things to some people. So let me just remind you who I'm suited for. And I literally, back of the napkin, I just describe my ideal client. Mm-hmm. And I might do this with NVG. NVG is, I talk about their needs, values, and goals. Okay, so my ideal client's typically a self-made first-generation business owner, a lot of moving parts. Complexity is amplifying as they get a little further down the track. They have needs that align with our process. Values. We're just in sync. We see the world the same way. They have attitudinal qualities that make us compatible. And you got to remember something, Dave. There's a reason why we have second, third, and fourth generation clients. We have clients for life. It's because we're compatible. And then, of course, goals. I mean, our clients are ambitious. They have goals of what financial independence means to them. And I might, depending on your interest in here, I might even go right to form and remind you about what it means to be a goals-based professional. And form is, all of my clients have goals around their family, their occupation, their recreational interests, and their money. And they're interconnected. Money is a means to those ends. I'm goals-based. So I explain the why, I explain the who, and then I explain the how. And this literally can be accomplished in anywhere between 60 seconds to about 4 minutes, depending on the engagement of the individual. You have to read the room. But I will punctuate it and say, no, Dave, just keep in mind, if this ever comes about, there is a process in place that our clients use to make introductions. There's a process in place.
Okay,
and then I would say,
process?
Yeah, step one, if you feel compelled to introduce someone to us, call us. Get the wheels in motion. Send me a quick email, give me a call, tell me about your conversation, tell me about your friend. We'll take it from there. Step two, we'll reach out to your friend and have an initial conversation. It might not go any further than that, but if they wanted to go further, we'll schedule a meeting and we'll sit down. And then again, we're led by them. We'll see where it goes. It's this incremental sequential progression based on the interest and appetite and engagement of the client. It might stop at, it's a value-added service, or it might go all the way to me, why, who, and how. And then there is a reinforcement dynamic of imprinting, gentle reminders over the lifetime of the relationship that we only accept new clients that are introduced to us. So we got a masterclass on this.
I know. I was about to say, advisors, that is a masterclass on how to get referrals. I can tell there are phrases, there are specific words. It seemed very natural and normal for you to go through that, but it seems like a well-crafted, and there were a few key things that really stood out. There's one question I have about it, and maybe I missed it. Do you let the client know? You can't give them a paragraph to repeat to the prospective client, their friend, but do you let them know, hey, you should talk to this person because this? Do you give them the words so it's easy to refer you?
Well, yes. First of all, the words matter. And again, it's not what you say, it's what people hear. In communication, there's a law called the law of resonance. The law of resonance says the value of what you say begins at the end of the conversation. What do they take out of the room or off the phone call or away from the Zoom? What do they take with them? So everything has to be framed. Why, who, how, NVG, everything. Those are imprints that make it a little bit more memorable. And now imprints, it sometimes takes a little bit of time for it to catch. But if it's honorable, if it's positioned properly, it does catch. There are some advisors, like the client will say, you know what, you've got to talk to my dad. You've got to talk to my dad. My favorite KPI on this, Dave, is when advisors get so comfortable with this positioning and it's customized for them stylistically. They meet with prospective clients, and prospective clients are telling the advisor about the people they want to introduce before they themselves have become clients, because it's such a refreshing departure by virtue of contrast. What they're used to, what they expected was going to happen, and what happened here, it's like, okay, finally. Like the best advisors in the business don't close. They don't sell. Their value is bought, not sold. Like it's the prospective client. You've had this happen, I'm sure, where a prospective client who's been introduced to you, meeting you, they've literally been in front of you for 20 minutes and they say, Dave, respectfully, I've heard enough. I just want to get started. Would you accept me as a client? This is what I'm looking for. Yeah. You're not chasing, you're attracting. Everything about this is to power up that magnet.
Yeah, I love that. This will be the most viewed part of the conversation, maybe, because as you know, advisors are interested in this. That's super valuable. Thank you. I'm going back to listen to it too. I had a question on differentiation, and we talked about creating a franchisable business and the standard operating procedures. Do you have any takeaways for someone who's listening for the first step? Would you say it is do that ChatGPT thing you mentioned, where you kind of turn it into a coach with the verbiage that you gave? Because I'm thinking of like the process over the product, right? I think I saw you actually on stage many years ago, maybe like 14 years ago or something, and you had talked about just name it something, and just have it doesn't even have to be trademarked, but just start calling it something. Any high level advice for someone to start doing that in 2025 about naming something, about the process? And, I know this could go so many different ways, but what's like the big, maybe 80-20? What's the most valuable thing to do there if someone wants to do that?
Yeah, great question. First of all, how do you articulate value? So I ask advisors this question all the time, and this is a straight line. It's almost like A through Z. Okay, the letter A, I'll ask the advisor, what do you do? Like, what business are you in? What makes you different? Many advisors are exceptional messengers, but their messaging has them swimming in an ocean of sameness. They use jargon, they data dump, and they speak to intentions. They'll say, well, okay, I'm a financial advisor for the last 22 years, and asset allocation, standard deviation, money, like the data dump of jargon. And then we take a holistic approach and we help people achieve their financial goals. And I'm like, okay, fair enough. I understand what you're saying. I would much rather you say, we've developed and refined a process that helps our clients achieve their financial goals. Take the abstract, commoditized, transactional vagueness of this business and make it conceptual. Don't lead with mileage. Okay. So you're saying you've been in this business 21 years. I just met somebody who's been in it for 28. They must be better. You don't lead with these things. You lead with, and this is the frame: brevity, specificity, proprietary. Brevity. You don't talk about talking about things. You get to the point and you leave them wanting more. Read the room. Specificity, meaningful specifics. Proprietary, you can only get this from us. So just articulating it as the letter A, we've got a process. Now, of course, if you're going to tell the world you have a process, it helps to have one. Most advisors have a process. They don't refer to it as one, so they're often misunderstood or underappreciated. Sometimes we actually ask them to name the process. It becomes a brand within the brand. Like every advisor has clients that trust the advisor as a person. They trust the practice, the business, right? Main Street Wealth Management or whatever, Streamline, whatever the name of the practice is. Power it with a process, a brand. This is line extension. Now give your process, turn it into a thing. Okay. So it could be the Streamline formula. We've developed and refined a process. We call it the Streamline formula. Well, what is that? Okay, so, and now I have your permission. Now I can actually break it down. You call it a process, a method, a formula, or it's like a recipe. It's like we don't wing it. We don't build the bridges. We cross it here. Like this is clearly defined. Now, here's the interesting thing. If you want me to get into the weeds for just a moment.
Oh, yeah. Ready.
I ask an advisor, how many things could you do for a client over the lifetime of the relationship and into the next generation? If you could put every piece of the financial puzzle together for a client and you were into their heirs and the family tree, how many things could you do for them? Most advisors don't know. I say you need to know your number, you need to do your inventory. So go through that exercise. We've got that exercise. Most advisors could do 85 things for a family. 85. Some do more, some do less. Not the point. Know your number. Now, those 85 things are not proprietary. They're commoditized. A client can get those somewhere else. What can't they get somewhere else? How you do it. The art and science to how you put the pieces of the puzzle together so the client has the complete picture. Once the advisor pops their own hood and starts to understand and get granular and meaningfully specific, then we start to organize it. Most advisors, their fit process is 15 steps. From the moment they get introduced all the way through the interaction with a prospective client to the signing ceremony, 15 steps. Where is that? Oh, well, we just know where it is. It's in our heads. No, it's a skill if it's in your head. If it's documented, organized, now it's IP. How about your onboarding process? How many steps in your onboarding process to transition a client from there to your environment and fast track them to advocacy? Probably 15 steps, plus or minus. Get them organized. Start showing people this is our process. If you ever introduce someone to us, Dave, this is what they'll be exposed to. This is what you can expect and how we'll conduct ourselves. Yeah. It's different. Getting all of that laid out and organized and professionalized. Service model, 1242 or whatever it is. Get it organized. Yes, ChatGPT can take an advisor in all four of those quadrants right to the red zone instantly. I'm sure Chat is scraping from you and from me in a pattern recognition format to assemble this information. But you don't need to reinvent the wheel trying to get inspired with blank sheets of paper. Like, just get as far down the track as you can.
Yeah. I think that missing the last element, you get to the red zone, but then there is a piece, and I think it's wisdom. I think that's the piece that needs to get added to make it something real and what is really different and will resonate with people.
I'll give you an analogy on that, by the way, if you'll just indulge me.
Yeah.
So you've got younger kids than I. You're in prime time with your kids. Mine are actual people now, and they're out and about doing their own thing. Okay, here's this cool little factoid for you. So in our storage room, we have buckets of Lego from over the years. Buckets, random pieces of Lego. Not very valuable because there's no instructions. Who knows where they went? There's no boxes. It's just a bucket of Lego. There's AI now. I can take the bucket, pour it on the floor, take a picture, upload it. It'll highlight the pieces in that pile to help me build the Eiffel Tower immediately.
Wow. Cool.
Financial advisors got all these pieces. Randomly, they're not valuable. But if a client buys into the fact that, hey, I will put every piece of the puzzle together, I'll engage your other service providers, you'll have the complete picture, your fee worthiness, the degree that you're appreciated, and your advocacy soars because it's demystified.
Yeah. Wow. So I was wrong about the referral thing being the most valuable thing. There's a lot of gold here. You've got.
Thank you.
I think I might have the team watch this because it's the team at Streamline Financial. This is great, Duncan. We're wrapping up, but I'd like to get any thoughts on, since it's the end of the year, it could be personal planning that you do, or it could be business planning as you're kind of doing your review, thinking about the future. Are there any questions, any exercises you do that could be useful for advisors as they're doing the review or looking forward?
Another great question. I think high level, in general terms, be a serious student. Always work on your business, which means get everything out of your head and documented and digitally, physically organized, standardized. Now, that's all fine and good. We've heard that many times. I think if you want to get a little more granular, I'd say set a goal in the first quarter of 2025 to identify 6 to 8 gaps that exist in your business. And Dave, here's a shameless plug for us, but we have this tool called the Practice Management Index. It's a self-guided diagnostic tool. It takes an hour. I mean, just the exercise is incredibly valuable.
How do we get that?
You can just go to Pareto Systems. You'll see the Practice Management Index. We call it the PMI. It's been used by a lot of advisors, very revealing, and you can print out a report, you know where you stand. But back to every advisor in the business has 6 to 8 little tweaks. So you like EOS, you probably like Atomic Habits, you probably like the whole premise that you don't need to find one thing to improve by 10%. You need to find 6, 8, or 10 things you can improve by 1%. Most of the advisors we work with, there's nothing wrong. We're not coaching them out of a problem, trying to repair damage. Their mindset is plateau avoidance. How do I keep this thing from cresting and me hitting red line and running out of bandwidth? Okay, 6 to 8 gaps that you can refine and optimize and tweak. And that's the whole Kaizen mentality. Kai is change, Zen is good, change is good. Let's not slide into this sort of pattern of inertia confidence, riding momentum. Let's assume 2025 is going to be a little turbulent. Chaos creates opportunity. There's always a bull market somewhere. It's going to be those who will thrive going forward will be those who just keep working on their business.
Yeah, on the business. I love it. There is, thank you for giving the really practical advice and ideas on this. It's so useful. There's a lot of gold in this. So
thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to listen to this again. Anything else to mention to advisors before we hop off?
Every business is built to be sold. Your end game, your exit strategy might be 5 years out, 10 years out. It doesn't matter when it actually is. Always strive to be at the top of your game. And TOP is an acronym. Keep identifying ways to tidy up your business, back office, accounting, all of your compliant, everything, team order and structure. roles, response, just tidy. Literally, you could put it in the hands of somebody else and say, this is how we do it. Optimized. Keep refining and optimizing. And one of the best practices of the most enlightened teams, I'd be surprised if you don't do this, is the incrementalism of team meetings and having an agenda to keep working on the playbook, and then using, whether it's Read or Otter or anything, to just sort of memorialize all of that and just keep demonstrating trajectory of optimization. So tidy, optimized, and proprietary. You're a fee-for-service professional. You think for a living. Your fee worthiness, your personal fulfillment, your ability to get introduced into the family tree. I mean, you think about this. Who else in business has clients for life, let alone second, third, or fourth generation clients? It's so rare, especially in fee for service. Make everything proprietary. If it's in your head, it's a skill. If it's documented, now it's a thing. Your way, how you conduct yourself, your client-facing process, naming it, giving it an identity, a personality, imprinting that. These are all things that can be accomplished in the first 2 or 3 quarters of next year. The value of your business will go through the roof. The degree that it serves your life will go through the roof. You want to go take a 6-month sabbatical? You want to go and scale up, whatever your aspirations are. Unless and until these things are done, you'll be restricted. You'll be undermined. But the moment you do address this, literally 6 to 9 months, you can find another level of growth, efficiency, and productivity just by going through that simple protocol.
I love it. Duncan, thank you.
Thanks for everything you do, Dave. You're stirring the pot very, very well, very effectively, and let's stay connected. And I'll have to have you on Always On our podcast because you bring a lot to the table.
Excellent. Yep, let's do it.